Hi everybody, welcome to my presentation. How are we doing today? Welcome to the feature presentation for today. Today, me, James Phillips, I'm going to be discussing here the entire Catalonian crisis and simply focusing on good old Consul Marcus Tullius Cicero. We're going through there and we're going to be focusing here, a big thesis statement here is that essentially that while Cicero understood Catiline as a very serious threat, he also absolutely seized on that moment. And we're taking that and looking at how historians have viewed that in the lens of media as themselves a part of it, and how that argument has changed over time. But going there as well, I hope everyone's having a very good day and everything. And as we continue on, just allowing things to continue very quickly. Don't know if I can hear you actually. This is a virtual thing. But today, sorry, we are examining Cicero's role in the Catalan crisis. What I mean by that, we will find out as we keep going along. Alright, some context very quickly. So, this is going to be some bullet points. I'm just going to go generally over this bit by bit. So, overview. The late Republican crisis was defined by political gridlock, debt, rising violence, and a frustrated populace. Our main guy right here, Catiline, had run multiple times for the consulship and had lost equally multiple times to the same guy, Cicero. This placed not only Catiline in quite a lot of debt, but him into a very bitter state. He was very desperate and started relying on old friends, disgruntled members of the populace, influential people who could help him overthrow the Republic. This was eventually discovered by Cicero, who exposed him in a series of orations, famously known as the Catiline orations. Some rebellion happened, battles began, yada yada. Cicero emerges eventually victorious with Catiline dead. But that's not what this is about. This presentation is not in any way just a retelling of the history. This is about the media surrounding the crisis. I myself work in media professionally. I'm a reporter. I do PR stuff. So this is stuff that really fascinates me. And really, what we're looking here is focusing on Cicero's motivations. How did he take this crisis of the moment and turn himself into the man of the moment, turning a crisis into something for his own political gain? Sorry, excuse me again. And then, going further, we're going to be looking at Catiline's, not necessarily real motivations, but, excuse me for 1 second. I'm back. Apologies about that. Sorry, I have a bad cough. Continuing on, so we looked at Catiline's motivations, and going from there, we're going to be looking at scholars like Hardy, Waters, Langenwerf, Reamer, and Tempest, looking at what they're saying, and then essentially yada yada yada. We will go more in depth into it in a moment. And so this is going to be more the historiography section. Then we're going to be looking more modern historians and seeing where their interpretations diverge. Essentially, once again, going over this, we're looking at how the media was viewed in Cicero's time as it himself. Then we're looking at, as post-Cicero, how the arguments around it started to develop. And now we're looking into the modern day of how we see it. Going from there as well, those earliest writings, again, we're starting with Cicero. The earliest writings from Cicero come in the Catiline orations. The earliest writings from Cicero himself come from the Catiline orations. These speeches were Cicero publicly setting the stage for how Rome should understand Catiline as an active, immediate threat to the stability of the Roman Republic. Cicero works to frame Catiline on the same level as Rome's great previous enemies, and by great previous enemies, I mean Carthage. Carthage was outside the gates, but oh god, Catiline is the enemy from within, and he's inside the flippin' Senate already. It's just terrible. So essentially, you're trying to get the senatorial elite to get along with the idea of not insane, but insane by Roman standards of mass killings without a trial, and getting the people along with it so they're not rebelling along with Catiline. Vale. Going from there as well. What exactly did Cicero gain from all of this? Quite a lot. While Cicero, again, did see himself as the defender of the Republic, this was not purely out of civic devotion. Cicero had a lot to gain from this. Cicero had the rare chance, and the fact that he could play the hero in a crisis like this without actually doing a military action in which he was very bad. As Langen writes, Cicero appropriated the concept of the auducia, traditionally associated with battlefield valor, and applied it to his own rhetorical battle with Catiline in the Senate, using his political speech as a substitute for military prowess. Essentially, again, taking what would normally be by the sword and doing it by words. He doesn't have to be the military bad guy, the military hero anymore. He can just be Cicero, the wordsman, and still win the day. Incredibly useful for him. Going from there, Catiline's perspective again. Catiline saw himself pushed to the margins by the political system that really left him with no way forward. He had debts, failed campaigns, and a very angry group of supporters that wanted something out of him. And by supporters, I also kind of mean loan sharks as well. It's complicated. Rome, you know? The desperation in his situation, it's almost understandable, you want to say, but from his point of view, the Roman system was very much rigged, and this was his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even though saying all that, there's a certain degree of, not to say speculation, but it's almost, you have to read into it from other people's writings, as people don't write about Catiline for the sake of Catiline. People write about Cicero. We have Cicero's writing about Catiline, which is all obviously biased from his perspective. So it's nearly impossible even to do a presentation on Catiline himself without mentioning Cicero, as there's nothing about Catiline without Cicero. Now, going from that, we go into our older and our modern historians. Looking first at Hardy. Hardy, back in the day, takes a traditional view, treating Cicero's account as broadly reliable, arguing that the conspiracy arose from some real economic pressure, but we should trust Cicero overall. Going from there, we then move to Waters. Waters pushes back a bit on that, saying that the Cicero amplified the danger for his own advantage, turning the crisis into a political performance. We get that more nuanced view. Then we have Sallust, and which is, funnily enough, Sallust is a bit interesting, seeing he's not a future historian at all, and in fact is from Roman days. Which is one of those very interesting Roman cases where you have a historian and primary source. So both very biased, but also an incredibly good source. He famed Catiline badly, mind you, but the way he frames him is interesting. And that even back then, you see Catiline as more of less of a political actor and more a system of deeper decay. Why do I bring that up? Because it's showing a more of a nuanced perspective that's going to start being taken advantage of by the modern historians. Going into there, the new historians. Langenwerf, who comes after these people and everything, argues that Cicero reworked the Roman ideal of auducia. What I was mentioning previously, not going to go into that too many more, while Reamer focused on how Cicero's language manipulates his audience, showing how he uses fear and outrage to steer the Senate towards extreme actions, which is, again, what we're saying. Using this, as someone who works in media, we're looking at someone who is able of using traditional forms of, at the time, reaching out to the people, the bully pulpit, if you will, and really amplifying his message. Tempest goes even further than that, showing really how performative Cicero was. Cicero stages prosecutions like theater, using narrative, characters. Again, like if you go through the orations, he's setting up Cicero, Catiline, like a character. There's a good reason why we're still reading them in today, is that they're good pieces of Latin literature, albeit orations, but potato. Going from there to the end as well, really trying to wrap this up into a bow. What we're looking at here, to try to make sense of all of it, we have a view of narratives right here. We're going from Cicero all the way to modern times, and what the argument essentially is boiling down to is that the arguments around Catiline really have never been defined by Catiline. They've always been defined by people around him, whether that be people trying to give him a more nuanced perspective, or whether it be Cicero. And this presentation and the paper attached to it is really trying to look into that fact.